Good morrow everyone, Silvershire here, and the impossible has been achieved. There's finally a good adaptation of a fighting game. I'm going to talk about my personal feelings towards this show in the second half of the video, but first I want to point out some Easter eggs, changes to canon, and other noteworthy details that you may have missed throughout the series. Also, be sure to check out my trailer breakdown, as I won't be repeating any information from that. So without any further ado, let's get into this. There's not too much to discuss in episode 1. As I mentioned in my first impression short, Jin is watching a video on his phone at one point and it's playing audio from the games, which is a neat detail. In episode 2, we get the origin story of Jin's famous pants, which is that, drumroll please, he wanted them. Okay, maybe not the craziest explanation, but it is an interesting contrast to the live-action Tekken movie. In that, Jin thought the flames were dumb, but his manager, who was Steve for some reason, made him wear them so that he had a signature look. I definitely prefer Bloodlines' version, as it shows more respect towards the games. It also ties into the motif of fire that runs throughout the series, representing hatred and vengeance. Heihachi's assistant Miura is an original character created for this series. She kind of bears a passing resemblance to this unnamed scientist from his Tekken Tag Tournament 2 ending, but I think that's just a coincidence. Get it? She bears a resemblance, cause he turns into a bear. Sorry, moving on. One of Jin's exercises involves chains wrapped around his arms, which may be foreshadowing his devil form. During Jin's first fight with Hwoarang, or Hwoarang as they say in this, come on Namco, just pick a pronunciation. I swear they say it differently in every single piece of media. There's a billboard with silhouettes of Roger and Roger Jr. as well as some regular kangaroos. Though they don't appear in the show, the Roger family is way more important to the story of Tekken than people realize. The reason June entered the King of Iron Fist tournament, which is where she met Kazuya, was to stop the Zaibatsu from smuggling and experimenting on animals like Roger. So without this genetically engineered marsupial, Jin would have never been born. Weird, huh? Jin and Xiaoyu's school uniforms are taken straight from Tekken 3. I'm not going to bother pointing out all of the outfits that are based on the games, but I want to draw attention to these two since they don't get much screen time. In episode 3, Jin is scrolling through some news articles about Kazuya, and if you pause to read them, they make no sense. They're written like scripts, they describe events that are totally unrelated to the headlines, including the tournament that hasn't happened yet, they're rife with grammatical errors, and most importantly, the stories are absolutely bonkers. Wang apologizes to Xiaoyu about being part of some secret ancient order, Jin hangs out with a guy named Detroit in a haunted forest, Kazuya finds a baby bear that has the devil gene, and that's just scratching the surface of this madness. I don't know if these are translation errors, or jokes, or just random things that were lying around in Namco's office. It's so strange. Throughout the series, we get various incomplete looks at the tournament bracket, so I thought it would be fun to piece it all together. In the first stage, Jin beats Leroy, Fang beats Lei, Anna beats Yoshimitsu, Hwoarang beats Steve, Julia beats Law, Paul beats Kuma, King beats Marduk, and Xiaoyu beats Nina. In stage 2, Jin beats Fang, which is his only off-screen fight, Hwoarang beats Anna, Paul beats Julia, and King beats Xiaoyu. In stage 3, Jin beats Hwoarang and King beats Paul, and in the final stage, Jin beats King. It's odd that they don't even mention Jin fighting Fang. I wonder if it was originally included but got cut for some reason. In episode 4, Xiaoyu battles Nina, and I found this whole thing strange for a couple of reasons. Xiaoyu is described by Heihachi as this tactical genius who makes up for her lack of raw strength by outsmarting her opponents and tricking them into wearing themselves out. This isn't something that's focused on in the games, but it kind of makes sense given her evasive playstyle. Yet it all falls apart because her opponent is Nina. You know, the super assassin. The master of espionage who has her own spin-off title all about finding and exploiting weak points. I really don't think she would be so easily outsmarted by Xiaoyu. Plus, Nina is also a quick and technical fighter who doesn't rely on raw strength, so it's not a great point of comparison. It would make way more sense if Xiaoyu was fighting a big meathead like Marduk. And to make matters worse, the whole point of this scene is for Heihachi to go, uh-oh Jin, I wonder what strategy she has planned for you, but then they never even fight. She gets eliminated by King. I guess hyping up Xiaoyu makes King seem like a bigger threat, but his fight with Paul already does that. I get it, I'm overthinking things. They just wanted to have a girl fight and needed to come up with a reason for Xiaoyu to win, but it feels like such a strange thing to focus on if it's not going to come up later. They could have had her advise Jin on how to beat Ogre or something. Moving on to episode 5, the show takes some creative liberties with King. First of all, he makes normal human grunts in addition to jaguar noises. This is a controversial change, but I actually like it. When he's attacking or otherwise putting on a show, it makes sense for him to growl, but if he's genuinely reacting in pain, I don't expect him to stay in character. The weirder change is that his mask seems to be able to blink. Maybe Armor King is just off camera with a remote control for the eyes. speaking of King, his victory over Paul would be a big surprise if it wasn't spoiled in the trailer. In Tekken 3, Paul goes undefeated in this tournament, and he only loses because he pieces out after defeating Ogre, not realizing he's about to turn into True Ogre. He's canonically one of the game's strongest fighters, especially at this point in his life, so it's shocking that he lost. I'm a King main though, so I'm not complaining that they buffed my boy. I assume they wanted to highlight him since he has the most noble use for the prize money. This episode also has what might be the least necessary use of a flashback ever. Jin is having a conversation with Julia, 33 seconds pass in which not much happens, and then we get a flashback to that same conversation with Julia. Like, you couldn't have just added that to the end of the last scene? It reminds me of that ProZD skit about anime filling for time. In the final episode, Ogre says something in a strange alien tongue. In Tekken 3, Ogre speaks Japanese but backwards and distorted, so I wonder if that's also the case here. I actually like Bloodline's design for Devil Jin better than the one in the games. His feet have claws on them to match his hands, and the bottoms of his pant legs are tattered as if burnt by fire. It gives him more of a wild, monstrous appearance. The final shot of the show is very similar to Jin's Tekken 3 ending, with him flying towards the moon. Overall, I liked the show. It's faithful to the games, but it still feels like its own thing, and the story was compelling even though I knew exactly where it was headed. The art style took some getting used to, but I think it worked well for the most part, and the animation during the fight scenes was great. Reddit likes to clown on the triangle shadows, but you really don't notice them if you're actually watching the show. The tone was a little more serious than I would have liked given the goofiness of the games, but it's what I expected based on the trailer, so I wasn't disappointed. I think it could have done with another episode to flesh out the side characters. Julia and Nina in particular feel like they don't have anything to do other than give a bit of exposition, and it would have been nice to see more of Hwoarang and Xiao Yu's relationship with Jin prior to the tournament. As someone who knows these characters, it wasn't a big deal, but if you were to watch this without playing the games, I don't think you would be invested in anyone but Jin. My other complaint is that it got a bit too violent towards the end. The show was bloodier than the games overall, but I didn't have a problem with it until the final episode, when Jin got shot and Devil Jin nearly killed Heihachi. It still wasn't crazy gory or anything, but it felt unnecessary. The game portrays those same things just fine without stooping to blood splatters all over the screen. I wouldn't mind so much if not for it being part of a larger trend. So much media these days is obsessed with being grimdark and edgy and shocking, and I'm just sick of it. But stepping off my soapbox for a moment, I'll reiterate that I had a blast, and I would love a Season 2, even though that's almost definitely not happening. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of the show. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I bid thee farewell.
Kazuya, Heihachi, Jin, Junjin, Pachi, Devil Jin, Angel Devil, Moku Jin, Gunjack, P-Jack, Tetsu Jin, Marduk, Gigas, Katarina, Eddie, Christiana, Nina.